Can you see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Before I show you the models, I'll briefly explain like how the different parts of the cardiovascular system develop. Am I audible clearly? Or any background noise is there? All are sleeping. Huh? Yes? Not bothered whether it is whether my voice is clear or not.
Ma'am, voice is clear.
Clear, no? I thought after logging in you all slept. Mm, during development, like before the folding of the embryo, the cardiogenic area is behind the pericardial cavity. After folding, like it is in the cardiogenic area is in front of the, it's just beneath the septum transversum, just beneath that. Then behind that will be the pericardial cavity. The after the formation of the head fold and the tail fold, the head fold, the pericardial cavity, it comes and lie in front of the cardiogenic area. The mesoderm in the cardiogenic area, it differentiates and forms the endothelial cords. Cords are, they don't have the lumen. Okay, there are two endothelial cords. The mesoderm present in the cardiogenic area differentiates into two endothelial cords. Later canalization occurs and they are converted into tubes, endothelial tubes. These two endothelial tubes, they join and form a single tube craniocaudally from above downwards, head to toe. Okay, craniocaudally, and forms the heart tube. Later saculations or dilatations occur in the heart tube. These dilatations are from above downwards. The cranial end is the arterial end and the caudal end is the venous end. From above downwards, these dilatations are truncus arteriosus, bulbus cordis, primitive ventricle, primitive atrium, and sinus venosus from above downwards, cranial to caudal wards. So this is the model which we have for the heart tube. We have different dilatations, like 5 dilatations are there from above downwards. Truncus arteriosus, bulbus cordis. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Primitive ventricle, primitive atrium, and sinus venosus. At the base of the sinus venosus or the floor of the sinus venosus, we have 3 pairs of vein which drain into the sinus venosus. From medial to lateral, these are vitelline veins. Vitelline veins, they drain the developing gut. Umbilical vein, they drain the blood from the placenta, like from placenta to the fetus. Umbilical vein. Then more laterally, we have the cardinal veins. Cardinal veins are the body veins which drain the blood from the body wall. Okay. Sinus venosus is a venous end. Truncus arteriosus is the arterial end. So this heart tube, this will fold. See, this heart tube will fold in such a way that the 4-chambered heart is formed. In front of this, we have the pericardial cavity in front of the developing heart tube. 5 dilatations develop. Later, the region of the bulbus cordis and the primitive ventricle, initially that limb will fold front into the pericardial cavity. It forms a loop. It's a cranial loop and the caudal loop. Cranial loop is formed by the bulbus cordus, and caudal loop is formed by the primitive ventricle. This part, this bulboventricular loop, will bend into the pericardial cavity initially. As it will bend into the pericardial cavity, the sinus primitive atrium and sinus venosus will be shifted backwards. Okay, I can see this. It is shifted backwards. Shifted backwards. And later this primitive atrium that will go behind and above the developing bulboventricular loop develops into, like, it bulges on both the sides of the bulboventricular loop. And later the primitive atrium will divide and differentiate into right and left atrium. That's why we have the right atrium and left atrium little behind and above the ventricles. Okay. So for this I'll show you a video. You better understand with that. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. The two endothelial heart tubes fuse to form a single tube, later differentiates into truncus arteriosus, the 5 dilatations, bulboventricular loop, primitive atrium, sinus venosus. The sinus venosus goes behind and upwards above the bulboventricular loop, and the final position of the different chambers. Goes backwards, then grows more upwards. This is the lateral view, this is the frontal view. Frontal view and the lateral view. Okay. You understood how the heart tube, cylindrical heart tube, develops into 4-chambered heart, like how it folds the bulboventricular loop and how it develops into primitive atrium. Okay, that's an external appearance. Did you understand something? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Later on you can refer that. It's very nice video to understand like how the heart tube gets folded. Okay. Now we'll see like how the different chambers of the heart will develop and the interatrial and interventricular septum will develop. If we take a section, more in front, in the frontal plane, we'll get the ventricles. If we take a section behind, like a more posterior plane, we'll get the primitive atrium, like how the changes will be occurring. This is more in the frontal plane, so you can see the ventricular chamber and a single opening from which the primitive atrium will open into the primitive ventricle. There is a single atrioventricular canal. Later in the anterior wall and the posterior wall, two endocardial cushions develop. Ventral and dorsal endocardial cushions. They fuse with each other and form the septum intermedium. So the single atrioventricular canal is divided into right and left atrioventricular canals. Okay, separately. One for the right and one for the left. If we take a section more behind this section we can be able to see the primitive atrial chamber. This is the primitive atrial chamber. In the posterior wall of the primitive atrial chamber on the right side, the sinus venosus, which is the lowermost dilatation, is going to open on the posterior wall. Just to the left of that, this is the frontal view. This is the lateral view. So you can see this from the posterior and cranial part of the wall of primitive atrium. A septum descends down. Now you can see this. This is the septum. This is the lower margin. Here you can see the lower margin in the lateral view. This descends down and you can see the dorsal and ventral endocardial cushions, which later fuse to form septum intermedium. This septum primum, this lower end is free. So it allows the flow of blood from right to left. This foramen is called as foramina primum or primary foramen. Later, as the septum primum it approaches the septum intermedium, the cells in the upper part they disintegrate and form a secondary foramen. One more foramen is formed, that is called foramina secundum. Okay. Then the septum primum it gets attached to the septum intermedium, and the cranial part, this foramina secundum, is formed. Just right to that, one more septum develops, that is septum secundum. This septum secundum it descends down on the left side of the septum primum. This septum secundum it acts like a flap. It allows the flow of blood from right to left, not from left to right. Okay. As the lungs are not functioning, the right part of the heart will not send most of its blood to the lungs for the oxygenation. Instead, it will be bypassed to the left side, and this will be sent to different parts of the body of the fetus. So this foramen septum secundum it acts like a flap wall. It transmits the blood from right to left, not from left to right. Okay. So when we view it from the lateral side, we can see this gray color wall is this thing, septum secundum. It has a crescentic margin below, which is called as limbus fossa ovalis. On the other side, we have the fossa ovalis. If we view this from, if we view the septum secundum and septum primum from this side, we can see this is septum secundum, the gray, darker gray. Then the black line is the limbus fossa ovalis, which is the margin of the septum secundum, and this is fossa ovalis, which is the septum primum. This thing, septum primum. Okay, this is called foramen ovale. It's a flap-like valve which allows flow of blood from right to left. Once the fetus is out of the womb, the lungs they're getting functional. So the pressure in the the blood will flow from right to, it will go to the right ventricle, then it will go to the lung for the oxygenation. So this septum primum will get attached to septum secundum, and this flap-like aperture is closed. Okay, that is a closure of the interatrial foramen. That's a foramen ovale. After that, once the pressure in the left side is increased, the blood will not flow from right to left. This septum secundum gets attached to septum primum. That's the functional closure occurs like after 24 hours. So no blood will flow from right to left to right or right to left. Okay, this is the development of the interatrial septum. This one more change is the sinoatrial orifice. The sinoatrial orifice, initially it is large, then it is converted to smaller size, then it is like fusiform shaped, bounded by right and left venous valves. You can see here, right and left venous valve. You can see, you can compare the opening of the sinoatrial orifice, like it is reduced to a mere slit. Then the sinus venosus, this is the posterior view of the developing heart. This is the sinus venosus, left horn, right horn. Left horn, it will be reduced to a small size and it is converted into coronary sinus, through which all the veins will drain from the heart into the coronary sinus, whereas the right part of the sinus venosus is absorbed into the right part of the primitive atrium to form the smooth posterior part of the right atrium. Whereas left side, the pulmonary veins which develop in the developing lungs, initially a single vein will open into the posterior wall of the left side of the primitive atrium. Later it divides into two. See here, initially single, then two, then four. All these four pulmonary veins, they are absorbed into the wall of the primitive atrium until all the four veins, they are separate. They are opening into the chamber of the left atrium separately. Okay, so the posterior smooth part of the left atrium is formed by absorption of the pulmonary veins into the primitive atrium. Here we can see the frontal view, single opening of the primitive, the pulmonary vein. Later it's going to absorb into the primitive left posterior part of the primitive left atrium, and here it is formed posterior smooth part of the left atrium. Now how the right and left atrium are formed. The right atrium, the rough anterior part is formed by the right half of the primitive atrium, whereas left side, the anterior rough part is formed by left side of the primitive atrium. The right half of the atrioventricular canal is going to form the right atrium and left half of the atrioventricular canal. The smooth part of the right atrium is formed by absorption of the sinus venosus, whereas left atrium, posterior smooth part is formed by absorption of the pulmonary veins. This is the model of the heart which we have in our lab. So here we can see the four chambers, developing four chambers. This is a single atrioventricular canal, opening of the sinus venosus bounded by the valves, and this is the formation of septum primum, and below is the foramina primum, which allows the flow of blood from right to left. This is single channel which allows the flow of blood from right to, this is foramina primum. This atrioventricular canal allows the flow of blood from the primitive atrium to the primitive ventricle. Later it goes downwards and a foramina secundum is formed. Just lateral to that, this green one is a septum secundum which acts like a flap wall, allows the flow of blood from right to left, sorry, not from left to right. This is septum intermedium formed by the fusion of ventral and dorsal endocardial cushions. So that is how the interatrial, see this is foramen ovale. This is how the interatrial septum and the right and left atrium are formed. Okay, any doubt in this? Yes.
Ma'am, once could you explain the foramen ovale once again?
Foramen ovale. Okay. This is primitive atrium. From the middle part of the posterior wall of the primitive atrium, a septum develops. So it grows downwards and forwards. The lower part is crescentic shaped, that is called foramen primum. This grows downwards towards the developing septum intermedium. Later it fuses with it. Before it fuses, the cranial part will disintegrate and form the foramina secundum. Okay, foramina secundum is bounded by the formation, the septum secundum. It develops later. This septum secundum, it develops by the downward growth of the same septum develops just right to the septum primum. Okay, this septum primum. This septum primum, it bounds the upper part of the foramen secundum. Okay, once it is formed, it acts like a flap-like wall. Otherwise, with the formation of septum secundum, the blood can flow from right to left directly. But the septum secundum, formation of the septum secundum, a flap-like wall is formed. Like it allows the flow like this. That is foramen ovale. This thing is foramen ovale. When you see it, you can't see any foramen or something like that. But there is a aperture which allows the flow of blood from right to left. When the pressure in the left ventricle, it gets increased, it will not, left atrium will increase, it will not allow the flow of blood from left to right. It's a one-way valve. It will allow the flow of blood from right to left, not from left to right. You understood? Initially the septum primum formed. There is a foramen below, that is foramen primum. Foramen primum allows the flow of blood from right to left. Later this disintegrates, the upper part forms the septum secundum. This septum secundum is bounded by, like it covers the septum secundum. The septum secundum covers the septum foramen secundum. So this flap-like wall is formed, that is foramen ovale. Okay, you got it or any confusion?
Okay, ma'am. Yes.
Cleared or not?
Cleared, ma'am.
Cleared? Okay. So that is about the development of right and left atrium and interatrial septum. The interatrial septum is very commonly asked question. Now we'll study the interventricular septum. Due to altered flow of blood in the bulboventricular loop, the wall of this primitive ventricle, it goes upwards passively. It is taken in by the altered flow of blood. That forms the muscular part of the interventricular septum. It is taken in passively because of altered blood supply, because of altered blood flow. So this is a more frontal plane which we have taken. The section is taken in a more frontal plane. We can see the bulboventricular loop. This is the atrioventricular canal which is divided into left atrioventricular canal and right atrioventricular canal. This is a bulboventricular loop. In the bulboventricular loop, two ridges develop, right and left bulbar ridges. In the lower part, these ridges, they develop in a spiral way. They are not oriented in the same plane. They are oriented spirally. In the lowermost part, the right bulbar ridge is on the right side and left bulbar ridge is on the left side. If we go higher up, that's in the middle part, this right bulbar ridge, it goes in the frontal plane, and left bulbar ridge, it is in the posterior plane. Then higher up in the truncus arteriosus level, this left bulbar ridge is present on the right side, and the right bulbar ridge is present on the left side. Okay. Later these ridges, they get attached, ridges attach and form a septum. So you can see a septum here. In the more lower part, these ridges, they fuse with each other and form the pulmonary trunk in the frontal plane anteriorly and ascending aorta posteriorly. In the middle part, this turns. This pulmonary trunk goes to the left side and ascending aorta goes to the right side. And in the more frontal plane, ascending aorta is in the front and pulmonary trunk is behind. So as the septum is spirally arranged, we can see this arrangement. Later this, the interventricular septum, it develops from, it has two parts. One is muscular part and the other is membranous part. Muscular part, it develops from passive intaking of the wall of the primitive ventricle, whereas the upper part is bridged by the membranous part. Membranous part is formed by, it is contributed by three parts. One is the proliferation of the endocardial cushion, the septum intermedium. The proliferation of the septum intermedium downwards, and these are the bulbar ridges, right and left bulbar ridges. The purple and yellow colored walls are the bulbar ridges. They grow downwards and get attached to this muscular part. So the right and left bulbar ridges and the proliferation of the septum intermedium, that's the lower part of the septum intermedium, it proliferates and fills the gap and forms the membranous part of the interventricular septum. See, that part is bridged. So we can see this is the right ventricle, the other side is the left ventricle. This is the model of the developing interventricular septum. Here we can see this fused bulbar ridges and the endocardial cushion. This blue one is by the this is the left bulbar ridge, and the right one is the right bulbar ridge, and yellow one is the proliferation of the endocardial cushion. It's a septum intermedium. The caudal part of septum intermedium, it proliferates and fills that. This colored part is the membranous part of the interventricular septum, whereas muscular part is formed by passive intaking of the wall. Okay. So the septum intermedium is formed by, it is formed in two parts. One is the muscular part and the other is membranous, which is contributed by three parts: the right and left bulbar ridges and the endocardial cushion. Okay, any doubt in this? This is a bit confusing. At least you should remember like how interventricular septum develops. The muscular part develops from passive intaking of the wall of the primitive ventricle upwards. It goes upwards. Then the gap develops, that is interventricular foramen, which allows the flow of blood from right to left. So this interventricular septum foramen is bridged by the membranous part. Membranous part is formed by right and left bulbar ridges, and this is septum intermedium. The caudal part, it proliferates and fill the gap. So this also contributes for the formation of membranous part of the interventricular septum. Yes, tell me, any doubts?
No, ma'am.
No? Cleared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is the model of the interventricular septum. In some models, you can see they are not fused. This is the fused one. I'll show you after I finish this. I'll show you the models also, so that you have a 3D orientation. The right ventricle, the inflowing part is formed by the proximal part of bulbus cordis and right part of the primitive ventricle. The inflowing part, the flow of blood from the atrium to the ventricle is through the inflowing part. Outflowing part is the blood will flow outside. It is by the dextroventral part of distal part of bulbus cordis. On the right ventricle, left side, inflowing part is formed by left part of the primitive ventricle. Then outflowing part is formed by levodorsal. Levo is left, dextro is right. Okay. Right ventral part, left dorsal part of distal part of bulbus cordis. Then development of interventricular septum, muscular part, passive intaking of the wall. Membranous part is by the bulbar ridges, right and left, and right edge of the septum intermedium. Now that's about the development of the different chambers of the heart, interatrial septum and interventricular septum. Now the most important part is the aortic arches. Aortic arches are the arches or the vessels which connect. These arches, they develop in the branchial branchial apparatus. So there are 6 this thing. Once you study about the branchial apparatus, you'll come to know. In today's class, I'll discuss only about aortic arches. These aortic arches in the dorsal body wall, as you know, the 2 endocardial cushions, there are 2 endocardial cushions. They continued like downwards as 2 dorsal aortae along the dorsal body wall. These dorsal aortae, they fuse with each other and form a single one. But in the lower part, it fails to fuse, so it will divide and supply the 2 limbs, lower limbs. Okay. These dorsal aortae, they get connected in front. This is truncus arteriosus. This is ventral aorta. Ventral aorta gets attached to the dorsal aortae with the help of aortic arches. These aortic arches, 6 pairs, they are not formed at the same time. So the first one will appear, then second one will appear, later third one will appear. By the time first one will be getting degenerated, part of it will remain and part of it will go off. Then fourth one will develop, fifth, sixth, like that. Once the lower ones will develop, the upper ones will differentiate. So all the aortic arches you don't get at the same time. So we'll discuss like which arch will form which part of the adult circulatory system, the vessel. The first pair, most of it will disappear, only part of it persists as maxillary artery. Second part, most of it will disappear, part of it remains as stapedial artery. Third part, it is important. Third aortic arch, this is the third aortic arch and this is fourth one. This is the dorsal aorta. The dorsal aorta between the third and fourth will disappear. This part will disappear. Here you have seen It is continuous. The part between third and fourth, this part will disappear, which is called as ductus caroticus. This part, the dorsal aorta between third and fourth aortic arches will disappear, which is called as ductus caroticus, which may be asked as short answer. Ductus caroticus. The proximal part of the third aortic arch forms the common carotid artery. Okay, this forms the common carotid artery. The distal part above this dorsal aorta above the attachment of third aortic arch forms the internal carotid artery. External carotid artery, it will develop as a bud from the common carotid artery, third aortic arch. So this is a common aortic arch. Proximal part of the third aortic arch forms the common carotid artery. External carotid artery occurs as a bud from the third aortic arch. The distal part of the third aortic arch and the dorsal aorta above the ductus caroticus forms the internal carotid artery. You can see. Okay, third one, the proximal part forms the common carotid, distal part and the dorsal aorta above that forms the internal carotid. External carotid appears as a bud from the third aortic arch. This is same on both the sides. Fifth one, fourth one, fourth aortic arch. This is fourth aortic arch. Left side, right side, fourth aortic arch forms the proximal part of the right subclavian artery. This is the development is different on both the sides. Fourth aortic arch, right side forms the right subclavian, left side it forms the arch of aorta. Fifth one appears to disappear. No contribution from the fifth pair. Sixth aortic arch arteries. The proximal part forms the right pulmonary artery. Distal part will degenerate. Left side proximal part will form the left pulmonary artery. Distal part forms the proximal part of sixth aortic arch on right side forms the right pulmonary artery. Left side it forms the left pulmonary artery. Distal part forms the ductus arteriosus. What is ductus arteriosus? Anybody? Anyone knows? What is ductus arteriosus? Yes?
There's a small connection in the pulmonary arteries and aorta.
Yes? Yes, tell me loudly.
Connection between the pulmonary arteries and aorta.
Pulmonary artery and aorta. So that the blood will be shunted from the pulmonary artery into the aorta during fetal circulation as the lungs are not functioning. So what is the fate of ductus arteriosus? What happens in the adult? Like after birth, what happens?
It converts into ligament.
Yes, it is converted into ligamentum arteriosum. Okay, good. So that is about sixth pair. So we'll study more in detail about the arch of aorta and the subclavian artery. Arch of aorta is formed by the proximal part is formed by the aortic sac. Aortic sac is nothing but like where the two horns of the truncus arteriosus they get attached. So this proximal part is formed by part of the arch of aorta is formed by aortic sac. Middle segment is formed by left fourth aortic arch. Then distal segment is by the dorsal aorta. Distal segment is by the dorsal aorta. So this whole thing is the arch of aorta. This whole thing is the arch of aorta. Subclavian artery. Okay. On the right side, subclavian artery is formed by the proximal part is formed by the right fourth aortic arch, and the lower part, middle part is formed by the dorsal aorta, and in the lower part the cervical intersegmental arteries will be there. The seventh cervical intersegmental artery, it gets attached to the dorsal aorta. Below that the dorsal aorta will disappear on the right side, so that we don't get double aortic arches. Only left side we have aortic arch, which will continue as descending aorta. The dorsal aorta on the right side below the attachment of seventh intersegmental cervical artery, the dorsal aorta will disappear. Okay, so the dorsal aorta, the subclavian artery on the right side is contributed by three parts. The proximal part, right fourth aortic arch, right dorsal aorta, and right seventh cervical intersegmental artery. Okay, this whole thing is the right subclavian artery. Left subclavian artery is formed by the left seventh cervical intersegmental artery, this thing. Okay, left subclavian is only this much. Okay, so that is about the aortic arches and their derivatives. Now, one more important thing you should remember is the recurrent laryngeal nerve relation to these aortic arches. Ductus caroticus, which is the dorsal aorta between third and fourth pair of aortic arch, which disappears, and on the right side, this proximal distal part of the right sixth aortic arch will disappear. So this vagus nerve, it descends down and it sends a recurrent laryngeal nerve. It recurs after its formation. It goes up. So it winds around the subclavian artery, right subclavian artery, because this part here it has disintegrated, the distal part of the right sixth aortic arch. Whereas on the left side, the ductus arteriosus will be there, which is converted into ligamentum arteriosum. As this will not disintegrate, the right vagus will give a left recurrent laryngeal nerve which will wind around the ductus arteriosus. Okay, even though this you will understand more with the branchial apparatus. Actually, the recurrent laryngeal nerve is a part of some aortic, this branchial apparatus. Okay, by now you remember only this much. Like right recurrent laryngeal nerve, it winds around the right subclavian artery, whereas left recurrent laryngeal nerve, it winds around the ductus arteriosus or ligamentum arteriosum. So these are the models which we have. This is a normal one: right subclavian artery, right common carotid, external carotid artery, internal carotid artery. This is arch of aorta. This is left common carotid artery, left external carotid, left internal carotid, arch of aorta, dorsal aorta, left subclavian artery. This is a normal pattern. Okay. Anything wrong I'm telling? Yes. If you are listening properly, you might have that doubt. Am I telling external and internal carotids properly? This is external carotid, this is internal carotid. Is it correct? If you are listening, then you have that doubt. Yes, anybody there?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it correct? External carotid inside, internal carotid outside. Is it correct, or how do you feel? I'm telling it's correct, or am I wrong?
Internal carotid inside, ma'am.
No. Asking. You don't have the doubt because you are not listening it properly. Huh? I've stressed it, so you are asking. This is external carotid, it is correct. Internal carotid is this one, it is outside. It enters into the skull, it is called internal carotid. External carotid, it supplies the neck, structures of the neck. It supplies externally, hence it is called external carotid even though it is medial. Internal carotid is lateral. It goes into the skull, inside the interior of the skull through a foramen. As it supplies internal part, it is called internal carotid. So I am not wrong, okay? And you didn't have that doubt. And this one, it's an anomaly. It's double aortic arch. On both the sides, aortic arches are there, right and left. The part of the dorsal aorta below the attachment of right seventh intersegmental artery is not there. This part is present in this. It should disintegrate. That's why we can see double aortic arches. We can see in some amphibians or not amphibians. We can see double aortic arches in birds. Okay. The next models I'll ask you. You have to identify. What happens? The first one is what? These models are not normal. You have to identify what is the defect. Yes. This one is something to do with the subclavian artery. Can you tell what is that? This part has disintegrated. Red thing is the one which persists. Pink is the one which disappears. Yes. If you are attentive, you can answer. Yes, anyone? This is abnormal origin of right subclavian artery. Here the right fourth aortic arch and the dorsal aorta below the third aortic arch has disintegrated. So the right subclavian artery is going to originate from the dorsal aorta like this. This will compress over the esophagus, may cause dysphagia. This one, second one, any guess? This one, this part has disintegrated. So what is this? This is a reverse of normal, what we have. Yes? Normally we have right aortic arch, left side aortic arch. So what is this?
Left subclavian arch.
No, right aortic arch. This is, normally we have left side aortic arch. This whole thing is aortic arch. And the below part will disappear below the attachment of the intersegmental artery. Here on the left side, below the attachment of 7th cervical intersegmental artery, the dorsal aorta has disappeared. So we get the arch of aorta on the right side. This is right aortic arch. Okay, this is right subclavian. This whole thing is left subclavian. Reverse of the normal. I'll show you this. Wait. See, this is normal one because the dorsal aorta below the attachment of 7th cervical intersegmental artery has disappeared. In this one, this part has got disintegrated. So we get the right aortic arch. Okay, these are the some of the models of the normal aortic arch development and some altered. This one here. What has not disintegrated in this one? First, second, third, fourth. This part has remained. What is that? I've explained, no? Something, so you'll get some short answer. Ductus. Some ductus. Ductus caroticus. Okay. This is ductus caroticus. If it persists, then this is the external carotid. This also originates from the subclavian. This is like the internal and external, they will develop separately, not from the common carotid. This is external and this is internal. They are going to develop separately, not from the common carotid. Okay, the ductus caroticus has failed to develop. This one you don't understand anyway. This is the post-ductal correctation. The wall, like the dorsal aorta has constricted just below the opening of the left subclavian left artery, like left, just after the origin of left subclavian artery, there is a block here. So the lower part of the blood will not get the lower part of the body will not get the blood. So that blood is going to be supplied by the ductus arteriosus. Like it will go through the ductus. This part, ductus arteriosus, will supply to the lower limb. In this case, the ductus arteriosus will not degenerate. It will remain. So the blood from the left pulmonary vein is shunted to the dorsal aorta below, like this, and the upper parts, the upper limbs and all will get the normal blood supply. It's a correctation of the aorta. So that is about the aortic arches. Any doubt in this? That you may find little confusing. You have to practice the diagram repeatedly, then you understand. You don't understand it a first time when you read. You have to practice the diagram. Just reading won't help. You have to practice the diagrams, then you will not forget. So that is about aortic arches. Okay. Any doubt in this? I'll not show you the models of this because these are just plates. You can see the anomalies like this only. I'll continue with the cardinal veins, the other veins. There are three more veins, three pairs of veins which open at the floor of the sinus venosus. Vitelline veins, they carry the deoxygenated blood from the yolk sac, that is developing gut. Umbilical veins brings oxygenated blood from the placenta. Common cardinal veins, these are the common cardinal veins which drain the blood from the body. This is the upper part and this is the lower part. These are the anterior cardinal veins which drain the blood from the upper part. The posterior cardinal veins which drain the blood from the lower part. Okay. Now the portal vein, the vitelline veins, This sinus venosus, floor of the sinus venosus. In the middle, we'll get the vitelline veins. There are a pair of vitelline veins. They are by the side of the developing gut. These vitelline veins, they get connected by the anastomosis. There occurs 3 anastomosis: the cranial and the caudal ventral anastomosis. Cranial part in the liver and the caudal ventral anastomosis. These two anastomotic channels are present in front of the developing duodenum. In the middle part, the anastomotic channel is behind that. It is called as middle dorsal anastomosis. So this appears like a figure of 8. Two vitelline veins, right and left, get attached, connected by the anastomotic channels. The upper, the cranial and caudal ventral anastomosis, middle dorsal anastomosis. See, you can see this figure of 8. Right and left vitelline veins, cranial, caudal, ventral, middle, dorsal. Opposite the middle dorsal, how the portal vein is formed? It's over, no? Portal vein. What are the tributaries, main tributaries of the portal vein? Is it over or not? Yes.
Superior
Formation of
mesenteric vein.
superior
Superior
mesenteric vein
mesenteric vein.
and splenic vein. So this is splenic vein which opens opposite the middle dorsal anastomosis. It opens separately. Later some parts will disappear. So this figure of 8 will form figure of S. The left vitelline vein above the middle dorsal anastomosis will degenerate. The right vitelline vein below the middle dorsal anastomosis degenerate. So this superior mesenteric vein is formed by the right vitelline vein, the caudal ventral anastomosis and the left vitelline vein below the attachment of middle dorsal anastomosis. So till this it is a superior mesenteric. This is splenic. They both join and form the portal. This is the trunk of the portal vein which is formed by middle dorsal anastomosis and the right vitelline vein above the attachment of middle dorsal anastomosis. This double line is the portal vein. Then it will divide to right and left portal veins. This right portal vein is formed by the right vitelline vein above the attachment of cranial ventral anastomosis, the cranial ventral anastomosis and the left vitelline vein above this forms the left portal vein. So this is the development of portal vein. Portal vein development may be asked as a short note. So you just remember these steps. Vitelline veins, anastomotic channels occur which connect the right and left vitelline veins, that is cranial, caudal, ventral anastomosis and middle dorsal anastomosis, which form figure of 8. Later opposite the middle splenic vein opens. Later forms the figure of S. Some parts will disappear to form the portal vein, its tributaries and the branches. Okay, any confusion in this? You should remember figure of 8 and figure of S. If you remember this, you don't forget, you never forget the development of portal vein. It's very easy, don't make it complicated. Okay, I'll continue. This is the model of the portal vein. It's on the plate. The two vitelline veins, this is the developing liver, developing gut, the anastomosis, middle dorsal, caudal ventral, cranial ventral within the liver. This is the developed portal vein. Okay. Then cardinal veins. Cardinal veins are the one which drain the blood from the body. The anterior cardinal, they drain the blood from the upper part. Posterior cardinal, they drain the blood from lower part. The anterior and posterior cardinal veins, they open at the common cardinal at the side of the sinus venosus. Sorry. The posterior cardinal veins, they get attached in the lower part, which forms the iliac venous anastomosis. The anterior cardinal veins, these things, anterior cardinal veins, there occurs an anastomotic channel between right and left anterior cardinal vein, which allows the flow of blood from left to right. So the distal part on the left side below the opening of common cardinal disintegrates. So the left anterior cardinal vein and the anastomotic channel will form the left brachiocephalic vein, and right side, the upper part above the anastomotic channel forms the right brachiocephalic vein. Then these two will join and form the superior vena cava. The caudal part forms the caudal part of the right anterior cardinal vein below the attachment of this anastomotic channel forms the superior vena cava. This part which will enter into the this lowermost part forms the intra-pericardial part of the inferior vena cava. Sorry, superior vena cava. So that's about anterior and posterior cardinal veins. Now development of inferior vena cava, it is a bit complicated. So these are the posterior cardinal veins. The blue one, they get attached, they form an anastomosis in the lowermost part. Then behind this, two more vessels will develop. These are called as subcardinal veins. The red one are the subcardinal. Sub is below the posterior cardinal veins. These anastomotic channels, they anastomose these two venous channels. They anastomose with the posterior cardinal vein. Okay, two more, like one more pair will appear, that is the supracardinal above the posterior cardinal. So behind that is subcardinal, above the posterior cardinal is supracardinal. Then anastomosis occurs in between the supracardinal and subcardinal. This green one you can see is subcardinal supracardinal anastomosis. Then some part of this, most of the left side will disappear, right side will remain and form the complete inferior vena cava. The lowermost part is formed by the anastomotic channel of the posterior cardinal veins, the internal iliac veins. Then this green channel is the subcardinal supracardinal anastomosis, which forms the renal segment. The renal segment is the part of the inferior vena cava where the renal veins will open. This yellow one is postrenal, which is formed by the right supracardinal vein. This yellow one is right supracardinal vein. The renal segment is formed by subsupracardinal anastomosis. Then the right subcardinal vein forms the prerenal segment. And the uppermost part is the hepatic vein. Hepatic segment is formed by the right white line vein. The hepatic segment is the uppermost part within the liver, which is formed by right white line vein. The red one is a prerenal segment, which is formed by right subcardinal vein. Green one is by the subcardinal supracardinal anastomosis. That's a renal segment. Postrenal segment is by the right supracardinal vein. The lowermost part is by the anastomotic channel of the posterior cardinal vein. That is the development of inferior vena cava. This is the model of the inferior vena cava. It's on the plate. So these are The models of the cardiovascular system, the development of heart, the heart tube, the chambers, septum, aortic arches, and the veins. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, portal vein. So this is all about the embryology models. Any doubt in this? I'll show you the models if you don't have. Already I have shown, just for the sake of 3D orientation, I want to show you some models. Any doubts? If you are listening? Yes?
No, ma'am.
No. At least no, you can tell. Huh? Is it visible? Or looking very small? Can you see
Small,
this? Or should I do some settings? Yes, shall I do some settings? Is it visible properly?
No, ma'am.
Huh? Visible or no?
No, it's not visible, ma'am.
Not visible?
Now it's okay, ma'am.
Now it's okay.
And now it's visible.
Only my screen is visible, or you can see the others also?
And your screen is visible.
Ah, okay. Because I can see like so many names of yours, that's why I'm asking. This is heart tube. Visible properly?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the model which is answered frequently. This is going to be your favorite one. This is sinus venosus. From below upwards I'll explain. Sinus venosus, primitive atrium, primitive ventricle, bulbus cordis, truncus arteriosus. Okay, this is heart tube. Okay, model of heart tube with circulations. This is the model of development of interatrial septum and interventricular septum. This is septum prime. Yes. Visible or not?
Visible, ma'am.
The section is taken more on the posterior plane so that you can see the four chambers, developing four chambers, right, left, atrium, ventricles. This white one is primitive septum primum. This is the opening of sinus venosus which will open behind. This is a single atrioventricular canal through which the blood from atrium to ventricle comes. This is the muscular part of muscular part of interventricular septum which will develop because of passive intaking of the wall. Passive intaking of the wall inside into the bulboventricular loop. So the septum is formed. muscular part of interventricular septum. The later stages you'll get, this is sinus venous opening. This white one is the septum primum, green one is septum secundum, yellow one is septum intermedium. This is the right atrioventricular orifice, this side left atrioventricular orifice. This is muscular part of interventricular septum and a foramen in between. Okay. Development of interatrial septum, interventricular septum. This is the model showing interventricular development. Here you can see the other one I have shown you where the membranous part is completely formed. Right, left bulbar ridges, and this thing is the membranous part of the septum intermedium. All these three parts will fuse and form the bridge, the membranous part of interventricular septum, the upper part of the interventricular septum. The interventricular septal defects are formed because of the failure of development of membranous part. Okay, this is a model of development of interventricular septum. And you can see the bulbar ridges also, the spiral arrangement of the bulbar septum. Okay. Once you come here, you can see the models. All the embryology models are kept in museum, so you can visit the museum anytime and you can see. This is portal vein development. The plate, this is a plate. The middle one is the white line vein. This yellow one is the developing gut, that is duodenum. Brown one is the liver. So different stages of development of portal vein, which I have put in the PPT that I will share. Okay. Next stage. This is the final stage, fully formed portal vein. Okay. These are some of the models of CVS. So if you have any doubt, you can clear it. You can make it clear. Yes. If you don't have any doubts, I'll conclude. Shall I conclude? Why only few will be there?
Yes, ma'am.
Only 28? Others are not interested? Huh? Yes, okay. Anyways. We'll finish the class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.